All right, let's jump into this deep dive and really unpack some serious wisdom. The kind that might just shift your perspective a little. You ready for this?
I am. Always up for a good dose of inspiration.
Okay, good. So we're talking about these 25 quotes. They're all collected in this book called 25 Quotes That Will Forever Change Your Life. It's by Lee Murphy.
I've heard of it, yeah. It's been making the rounds. People seem to be really connecting with it.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. And Lee, the author, he sets the stage right by sharing this, his own kind of aha moment with this Steve Jobs quote.
Oh, yeah. I remember that from the intro. Didn't it lead to like a total career change for him?
It did. Talk about impact, right? Like just one sentence shifting your whole trajectory.
It is kind of crazy when you think about it. Like a single sentence can act as this mental shortcut to like a bigger idea.
A whole philosophy, even.
Exactly. And Lee, he really drives that point home.
He does. It's not just about reading them, right? It's about internalizing them, letting them challenge your assumptions and really spark change.
Yeah, for sure. Like taking those words and actually applying them to your life, that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. And Lee gives some great examples of how he's done that himself. It's pretty inspiring.
I'm excited to dig into some of these. Which one are we starting with?
All right. So first up, we have Steve Jobs' famous line, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do." And, Lee points out that this came from Jobs' Stanford commencement speech back in 2005.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. I mean, it's interesting, though, right? Like, Jobs doesn't say, find work you like or tolerate. He sets the bar at love.
He does.
Yeah.
It's like a whole other level of engagement.
Right. That implies this level of passion that fuels not just good work, but great work. There's a difference.
There is. And Lee's story really highlights that. Remember, he took a risk and left a secure job to pursue something he really loved.
That's brave. I mean, makes you wonder, though, is that always possible for everyone? You know what I mean?
Right. What about people who have, like, obligations? Families to support? Where does passion fit in that?
That's a great question. It's like Jobs was speaking to this very specific audience, right? Ambitious graduates.
Yeah.
But in the real world, sometimes the great work is simply providing, like keeping a roof over your head.
It is.
Does that diminish its value, though? If there's not this burning passion behind it?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's definitely food for thought.
For sure.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. This next quote is from the Dalai Lama. He says, "Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions."
Ooh, now this one really challenges that whole notion of pursuing happiness,
Which is so ingrained in, especially here in America. It's like we're constantly chasing after it.
Right. Like we're supposed to find it somewhere out there. But if all happiness comes from our actions, what about external factors?
Right. Like luck, genetics, circumstances. Do those not play a role?
Exactly. I mean, there's going to be some balance, right? Between taking responsibility for our own happiness while also acknowledging that we're not always in complete control.
Well, and Lee shares how he used to chase happiness externally, but he found like true contentment when he shifted his focus inward.
I can see that.
But is inner peace enough, though, if your circumstances are genuinely difficult?
Yeah, tough question. It's a complex issue, no easy answers. But I think at least the Dalai Lama's quote pushes us to examine something.
What's that?
Like, where are we placing the responsibility for our own happiness? Are we expecting it to come from those outside sources, or are we actively cultivating it within ourselves?
It's a good question. And it's one that we should all probably ask ourselves.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking happiness is something that just happens to us.
All right, this next quote is one that I personally struggle with. It's Wayne Gretzky's. "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." As someone who, loves to plan and analyze, this whole just go for it mentality is daunting.
I get it. It's interesting, isn't it? Gretzky, right?
Yeah.
Being this hockey legend, he's coming from a world where taking shots is literally the path to scoring.
That's true.
But does that always translate to other areas of life? Are there times when careful planning and calculated risks are more appropriate?
Yeah, than just swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep thinking about, Lee talks about missing out on asking his high school crush to a dance, and he was hesitant, and that regret stayed with him. But what if he had asked, and it went terribly?
Yeah.
Would that rejection have been worse than the what if?
Oof, that's a tough one. It's like those are the trade-offs that we have to weigh, right? Gretzky's quote, "It encourages action." which is great for overcoming inertia, but it doesn't account for the potential downside.
Of taking every shot.
Right. So maybe there's wisdom in choosing your shots wisely rather than just firing blindly.
Okay, this next one feels like a bit of a counterpoint to the Gretzky quote. It's Lao Tzu's famous line, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step."
Ah, classic Lao Tzu. I love that one.
Yeah. And Lee, he uses the analogy of running a marathon, something that seems impossible.
Right.
Until you break it down.
Exactly. It's like what's so fascinating here is the emphasis on the process, not just the outcome.
The outcome.
Like that 1,000-mile journey, that can be overwhelming, but that single step, manageable, almost inviting even.
Almost inviting, yeah. It makes me think about how we approach big goals in general.
In general, yeah.
Do we get paralyzed by the enormity of it all?
Paralyzed, yeah.
Or can we focus on those small, those consistent actions that will eventually get us there? Is that where true success lies? In the steady effort rather than the grand gesture?
I think Lee would say yes. It
How-
certainly seems to resonate with the way he tackled his marathon. He wasn't focused on winning. He was focused on taking those steps.
One after the other.
Yeah, one after another. It's a different kind of mindset, one that might be more sustainable in the long run.
That's a good point.
It is.
Okay, this next quote is one that I think we hear a lot, but it's worth revisiting for sure. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world."
Oh, a classic. And one that can be interpreted in so many different ways, right?
It can. Like, are we talking about changing ourselves first? Or
Yeah.
taking action to change the systems around us?
Right. Is there a hierarchy there? Or are they kind of intertwined?
Yeah. And Lee's story about his grumpy neighbor, Mr. Thompson, really brings this to life. Mr. Thompson constantly complained about their street.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of complaining too, Lee just started cleaning up.
What happened?
Eventually others joined in.
Oh, that's great.
So was that changing the world? Maybe not in a grand sense, but it definitely changed their world.
It did. It really speaks to that ripple effect. You know,
Ripple effect, yeah.
individual actions, they can inspire others, create a chain reaction, maybe not global, but still incredibly impactful.
Incredibly impactful.
Yeah. It begs the question, what kind of change do you want to see? What's one small step you can take today to embody that change?
And finally, we have a quote from Lewis Carroll that I find both comforting and unsettling. He said, "In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take."
Ooh, that's a powerful statement. Especially coming from the author of Alice in Wonderland, you
Yeah.
know, a tale filled with the unexpected. But is it universally true?
Right.
Do we never regret actions we've taken, even if they lead to negative consequences?
That's true. I mean, Lee's regret over not asking his crush to the dance, very relatable. But it makes me think about the flip side.
What if it had gone terribly?
What if we take a chance and it blows up in our face? Is the regret of inaction always greater than the regret of action? Maybe. Maybe it depends on the stakes involved.
Yeah, that's where I think discernment comes in. Blindly following any quote without critical thinking can be dangerous. Carol's words, yeah, they might encourage us to overcome fear, but it's our responsibility to weigh those potential outcomes.
To make choices that align with our values.
With our values and our goals, yeah.
Our goals.
It's about finding that balance.
It is.
Blind faith, in a quote, probably not the best strategy.
This has been such an insightful exploration of just a handful of these quotes. I'm already seeing them in a new light.
Me too. And that's just the beginning.
I know. It's exciting.
We've got a lot more ground to cover. So much wisdom to unpack.
So much wisdom.
So much wisdom.
It's a good thing this is a multi-part deep dive.
It is. It is. Buckle up. You know what's funny? What strikes me about all these quotes is how they often capture like a lifetime of experience distilled into a single potent phrase.
It's true.
It's like a cheat code to wisdom almost.
It is. And speaking of cheat codes, let's tackle one that deals with, those inevitable setbacks we all face. Winston Churchill, he famously said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." And given his leadership during World War II, I mean, those words carry some serious weight.
They do, and it's fascinating how Churchill just flips the script on success and failure.
He does.
We tend to view them as these endpoints, right?
As endpoints, yeah.
But he frames them as these temporary states. It's the response to those states that matters, the courage to keep going.
To keep going, yeah. And Lee, he shares this funny anecdote about his disastrous early attempts at baking bread. You remember that one?
Oh, yeah, the bread bricks.
The bread bricks,
Yeah.
exactly. And instead of giving up, he just kept experimenting.
Yeah.
And eventually those bread bricks, they transformed into these edible loaves. It makes you think, are we too quick to label something a failure
Yeah.
and just give up
Especially in today's world.
in today's world? Yeah.
Instant gratification, right? We're not really conditioned for the long game. But Churchill's quote, it reminds us that resilience, it's built in those moments. You know, picking yourself up and trying again and again and again.
And again.
And again.
Exactly. Okay, this next quote, it's a bit of a mind bender, but I love it. It's the best way to predict the future is to create it, said by Peter Drucker, the father of modern management.
Oh, that's a good one.
Almost like a paradox. Isn't it?
It is. It challenges that whole notion of prediction, suggesting that instead of passively waiting to see what happens, we have the power to actually shape our own destiny.
Through action.
Through action. It's a very empowering concept.
It is. And Lee's story, it really brings it home. Remember, he felt stuck in his career, but instead of complaining, he took Drucker's advice to heart.
What'd he do?
He set clear goals, acquired new skills, and basically just willed himself into a better situation.
I love that.
It makes you think, like, how much of our future is predetermined versus a result of our own choices.
It's a question philosophers have grappled with for centuries. But Drucker's quote, I think, it at least offers a way to navigate that uncertainty. You know,
To navigate it, yeah.
we might not be able to control everything, but we can control our response to circumstances.
And take action.
And take action. That moves us in the direction we want to go. That's key.
This next quote is a bit more philosophical, but I find it incredibly grounding. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Oh, Emerson. He was all about tapping into that inner strength and potential that resides within each of us.
He was. And he's suggesting here that our past experiences, future aspirations, they're secondary to the core values, beliefs, the resilience we carry within ourselves.
That's powerful.
It is. And Lee, he actually uses a baking analogy
Oh, I love his analogies.
to illustrate this. He talks about how his grandmother, she taught him that it's not about, the cookies you've burnt in the past or the ones you'll bake tomorrow. It's about the baker you are right now.
I love that.
It's about that inner potential.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. We often get so caught up in regretting the past or worrying about the future. But Emerson's reminding us that that true strength, it comes from cultivating that inner core,
That essence of who we are.
That essence, exactly.
Now, this next quote, this is one that I think a lot of people need to hear. You have within you right now everything you need to deal with whatever the world can throw at you. Brian Tracy.
Oh, that's empowering.
It is empowering.
It's a bold statement. It might seem counterintuitive, especially when we're facing challenges that feel, overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. But Tracy, he's emphasizing the power of our inner resources, the skills, the knowledge, the resilience.
Which we often underestimate.
Which we often underestimate, exactly.
And Leah, he tells this story about feeling overwhelmed by this demanding project at work. But after reading Tracy's quote, he realized that he already possessed the tools and the knowledge to tackle it.
He did.
He just needed to break it down, prioritize, and trust in his own abilities.
It's a good reminder. We're often stronger and more capable than we give ourselves credit for. We might not have all the answers right away, but we have the capacity to learn, to adapt, to overcome those obstacles.
This next one is a classic. And for good reason. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. Theodore Roosevelt.
Ah, Teddy, love it.
So simple, yet so profound.
It is. Roosevelt, right. Known for his boundless energy and can-do spirit. He really understood the power of self-belief.
He did.
He's suggesting that our mindset, our confidence in our own abilities, that's a crucial ingredient in achieving our goals.
And Lee illustrates this beautifully with his experience training for a 10K race. Initially, that distance just seemed impossible.
Impossible.
But by believing he could do it, setting a plan, and taking action, his confidence just grew with each step. It's like the belief itself just became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a powerful thing. It highlights that the importance of cultivating a positive self-image. When we believe in ourselves, we're more likely to persevere.
To persevere, yeah.
To take risks. And ultimately, to achieve things we might have thought were impossible.
Speaking of making a difference, this This next quote really resonated with me. Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. William James. It's a call to action, but also a reminder that we're all interconnected.
I like that. James, a pioneer in psychology, he understood the power of our thoughts and actions to shape our reality. He's suggesting that even small actions, when done with intention and a belief in their impact, can create positive change.
They can. And Lee, he tells this story about volunteering at a local food bank.
Mm-hmm.
At first, he felt like his efforts were just insignificant, in the grand scheme of
Yeah,
things.
you can feel that way sometimes.
But then he saw the gratitude in the eyes of the people he was helping. And he realized that each act of service, no matter how small, can make a difference
In someone's life.
in someone's life.
It's about shifting our perspective.
Shifting it, yeah.
From focusing on the scale of our actions
It's a scale
to the impact they have on individuals.
on individuals, yeah.
Even small gestures of kindness, generosity, they can ripple outwards, creating a more positive and compassionate world.
This next quote speaks to the power of overcoming self-doubt. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today.
Mm-hmm.
Franklin D. Roosevelt. And given the challenges that he faced, both personally and as a leader, those words, they carry a lot of weight.
They do. FDR leading the nation through some of its darkest times. And his quote, it reminds us that our doubts, they can be self-fulfilling prophecies,
They can be.
By overcoming those limitations that we place on ourselves, we open up these possibilities for growth, for achievement.
For growth and achievement. And Lee, he shares this story about feeling terrified to speak at a major conference, and he's just plagued by self-doubt. But after encountering FDR's quote, he decided to confront those fears head on.
Good for him.
He prepared thoroughly, visualized a successful presentation, and ended up exceeding his own expectations.
That's great. It's a reminder that our minds are powerful tools. By choosing to believe in ourselves, to challenge our doubts, to focus on our strengths, we can achieve things we might have thought were beyond our reach.
Okay, one more from Theodore Roosevelt, because why not? He said, do what you can with what you have where you are. It's about resourcefulness, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Roosevelt's quote, it's a call to action. It's urging us to make the most of our current circumstances rather than waiting for ideal conditions or an abundance of resources.
Make the most of it, yeah.
It's about taking initiative, finding those creative solutions.
And Lee tells a story about wanting to start a community garden, but feeling limited by a lack of space and materials. But instead of giving up, he and his neighbors, they just started small. They used whatever they could find. And eventually, that tiny effort, it just blossomed into this thriving community space.
I love that. It's a good reminder. We don't need to wait for the perfect moment or have everything figured out to get started. Sometimes the most impactful changes, they begin with small, resourceful steps taken in the present moment.
All right, this next quote is, it's a bit more philosophical, but it's one that I find incredibly motivating. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a Chinese proverb.
Ah, a proverb. Okay.
And it really highlights the importance of seizing the present moment. Regardless of past regrets or missed opportunities, it's about recognizing that it's never too late to start working towards a goal, to make a change, to pursue a dream.
It's never too late, exactly.
And Lee, he relates this to his experience learning to play the piano.
Oh, cool.
He always wanted to learn, but felt like he'd missed his chance because he didn't start as a child.
Yeah.
But then he encountered this proverb and realized that delaying action would only increase his regret.
It would.
So he took the plunge, and now playing the piano brings him immense joy.
Good for him. It's a great example of how we can sometimes get stuck in the should-haves or could-haves of the past,
We do.
But this proverb, it reminds us that the present moment is all we have, and it's always a good time to begin. It's great how Lee manages to bring humor into these profound topics. It's like he's reminding us not to take ourselves too seriously, even when we're exploring these life-changing ideas.
Right, even when it comes to heavy stuff, he keeps it light.
He does.
And he wraps things up with this section called Life's a Wild Ride, so buckle up. And it's full of his signature down-home humor. He uses all these funny analogies.
I love his analogies.
They're great to drive home the key points from the book.
It's a clever way to make these concepts stick. Sometimes a well-placed analogy or a humorous anecdote can be way more memorable than just a straightforward explanation.
Totally.
Hmm.
For example, when he's talking about embracing those unexpected twists and turns in life, he compares it to choosing skydiving over watching reruns of The Golden Girls.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It's like, which one is really going to make for a better story, right?
Exactly. It's such a funny way to highlight that importance of, stepping outside our comfort zones, being open to new experiences. Sometimes the most unexpected detours lead to the most incredible destinations.
And his take on change is hilarious. He says, waiting for change to happen is like waiting for a bus that never comes.
Oh, I like that.
If you want to get somewhere, you got to be the one driving the darn thing.
You got to take charge.
You got to take charge.
It's about ownership, recognizing that we have the power to shape our own lives
Right.
rather than passively waiting for things to happen. It's a message that's often lost in all those self-help books that just promise easy solutions.
And when it comes to living a life full of passion and purpose, Lee really he really lets loose. He talks about baking pies,
Yeah.
playing the banjo, even
Yeah.
chasing a runaway pig at the county fair. It's like he's saying life's too short to be boring, people.
It is. He's encouraging us to embrace the things that bring us joy,
Embrace it, yeah.
to pursue those passions and to create a life that's full of stories worth telling. It's a reminder that we don't have to follow this prescribed path. We can create our own adventures.
We can create our own adventures. And his analogy for self-belief, it's spot on. He compares it to a GPS with an attitude problem.
Oh no.
Constantly telling you you're going the wrong way. It's like, if you don't believe in yourself, how can you expect to get anywhere?
Exactly. It's a good reminder that our internal dialogue, our self-talk, that plays a huge role in shaping our reality.
It does.
If we constantly doubt ourselves, we're likely to sabotage our own efforts.
Hmm.
But if we believe in our abilities, we're much more likely to persevere and achieve our goals.
And to wrap things up, he reminds us that success often comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it.
Oh, how so?
He compares it to a squirrel on a caffeine high,
Okay, I'm intrigued.
just zipping around, getting things done.
I love that. Sometimes we get so caught up in the pursuit of success that we forget to actually enjoy the process, the
Yeah.
work itself.
Mm.
But Lee's suggesting that when we focus on doing the things we love, the things that light us up, success often follows naturally.
This whole book has been such an inspiring journey through the power of words, and I love how Lee ends it with a call to action that's both like grand and incredibly simple. He says, life is a wild ride, so buckle up, embrace the adventure, and make the most of every moment.
It's beautiful. It reminds us that life is precious and fleeting, and that we have the power to choose how we experience it. We can either sit on the sidelines or we can jump in, embrace the unknown, and create a life that's rich with experiences and memories.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into 25 quotes that will forever change your life. It's been a wild ride, and I hope you've come away with some new insights and a renewed sense of purpose.
And don't forget, even though we've reached the end of Lee's curated list, the exploration doesn't stop here. There are countless other quotes, stories, experiences out there just waiting to be discovered. Keep seeking, keep learning, and keep living with passion and intention.
Beautifully said. Until next time, keep those quotes close at hand and remember to make your life a story worth telling.